Imagine walking into a sprawling American mall in, like, the summer of 1999.
Oh man, the absolute peak of the mall era.
Right. And in the span of maybe 50 feet, you were getting blasted by these pristine, Swedish-engineered pop chords echoing out of a Claire's boutique.
Naturally.
And then you take a few steps, and there's a heavily down-tuned, distorted new metal guitar riff just roaring out of a Hot Topic.
The quintessential mall experience right there.
Exactly. And maybe some incredibly futuristic R&B beats thumping out of a Foot Locker across the hall, and somehow millions of teenagers were buying all of it at the exact same time. It was an absolute glittering food court of musical chaos.
It really was.
Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today we've got a fascinating document in front of us, a massive compilation simply titled 1999.pdf, along with its accompanying 1999 mixtape.
Which is just a brilliant collection of sources, by the way.
It really is, and our mission here is to unpack a very specific phenomenon for you. We want to look at why 1999 acted as, well, the final year of a unified pre-streaming monoculture.
The last gasp of it, really.
Yeah, and how its bizarre, beautiful soundscape perfectly defined the teenage experience for an entire generation, right before the internet fractured absolutely everything.
Because when you look back, it was a highly synchronized world. When you think about the media landscape you live in today, you have infinite choice.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Everything is at your fingertips.
Right. You curate your own reality.
Yeah.
Algorithmic playlists serve you exactly what you already know you like, and you basically never have to step outside your sonic bubble.
Yeah, it's super isolated.
But in 1999, the actual friction of physical media forced a shared cultural touchstone. Everyone was on the exact same page because everyone was looking at the exact same highly limited menu.
Exactly. I mean, if you were a teenager in 1999, you weren't just, pulling up a streaming app.
No.
You were curating your entire identity within the physical limits of a 74-minute burned CD.
The sacred burn CD.
Yes. You had a massive binder of these things sitting on the passenger seat of your car. You had MTV's Total Request Live. You had mall sound systems. You had school dances.
Massive funnels of culture.
Right. These were massive funnels. Before the fragmented, hyper-personalized playlists we have today, millions of people were hearing the exact same songs at the exact same time. It was like the entire culture was one giant, synchronized jukebox.
With frosted highlights.
Yes, exactly, with frosted highlights.
And, to understand the sheer scale of the music being pumped out of that jukebox, you first have to understand the incredibly fragile delivery system that held it all together.
Right, the industry itself.
Exactly. The traditional music industry, gatekeepers. So we're talking the major record labels, the radio programmers, the MTV executives.
The people pulling the strings.
Yeah, they had a complete monopoly on distribution. Their power was based entirely on the physical bottleneck. If you wanted to hear a song, you had to buy the plastic disc or sit through the radio commercials.
Because there was literally no other way to get it.
Right. They controlled the supply, which meant they had a completely captive audience.
Captive audience is the perfect way to put it. But right at the peak of their power, there was this digital threat looking just out of sight.
The beginning of the end.
Yeah. The documents we're looking at use this incredible imagery. They describe early peer-to-peer file sharing, like Napster, as a digital raccoon getting into the trash.
I love that phrase. It's so accurate.
It's so vivid. You suddenly had teenagers diving into the chaotic, lawless reality of downloading what the notes call LimeWire viruses shaped like MP3s.
Oh, we all ruined a family computer back then.
Oh, totally destroyed the hard drive just to get a Linkin Park song. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If the record labels were at the absolute zenith of their wealth and influence, churning out these highly polished multi-platinum CDs for the mall crowds.
Which they were. They were printing money.
Right. So how did a clunky early internet program dismantle that unified experience so incredibly quickly?
Oh, because it didn't just change how you acquired music. It fundamentally broke the economic and cultural model of the album itself.
What do you mean by that?
Think about how file sharing actually worked mechanically. Prior to this, if you liked one catchy song on the radio, you had to go to the store and spend like $18 on a CD.
Yeah, a CD that might be filled with 12 other tracks of just terrible filler.
Exactly. You were buying a bundle. You had no choice. But when that digital raccoon got into the wires, peer-to-peer networks allowed you to bypass the physical truck delivering the CDs.
Oh, I see.
And more importantly, it unbundled the album. You could suddenly download just that one hit song for free.
So you're stripping away all the filler.
Right. Once you remove the physical friction and allow people to pick and choose individual tracks from anywhere in the world, the mass appeal of manufactured mall-era pop music starts to crack.
Because you aren't trapped with the whole album anymore.
Exactly. It opened the door to the hyper-niche, individualized digital consumption that we basically live in today.
Wow. Okay, but right before that dam broke completely, the sounds fighting for space at the top of the mountain were absolutely colossal.
Unbelievably huge.
Because the what the source calls the chrome heavens of 1999 were very real. We are talking about the undisputed commercial titan of the year, which is the teen pop explosion.
Peak mall pop civilization.
Peak civilization. You had Britney Spears, TLC, Christina Aguilera, and of course the boy bands like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC.
Total domination.
I was looking through the musical breakdown of the Backstreet Boys' I Want It That Way in our sources, and it is fascinating.
Oh, it's a masterpiece of engineering.
It really is. The source describes the song as a pristine power ballad that is almost scientifically engineered in a studio for maximum emotional impact.
They definitely had it down to a formula.
Right. So it starts with this gentle acoustic guitar and then brings in what the notes call swelling pads.
Yeah, and for anyone who isn't like an audio engineer, a pad is a type of synthesizer sound that doesn't have a sharp attack.
What do you mean by sharp attack?
Well, it's not like hitting a piano key where you hear the note instantly. It's a sound that slowly rises in volume and washes over you.
Oh,
It creates this huge atmospheric cushion of emotion.
right. So you have these swelling emotional pads, this breathy vocal intimacy, and then the structure employs dramatic key changes.
The classic boy band key change.
Yes, a key change literally physically shifts the pitch of the entire song upward right near the end. It's a mechanical trick.
Designed specifically to give arena crowds holding lighters or, well, flip phones, a massive rush of adrenaline.
Exactly. The breakdown literally states that in 1999, quote, hook density reached unsafe levels.
That is the perfect description. Unsafe levels.
But you know, when you hyper-polish pop music to that degree of scientific perfection, it eventually has to compete with other massive cultural forces that offer something entirely different.
Something with a little more pulse.
Right, because while teen pop was pristine, you had the Latin pop crossover happening simultaneously. And the source is clear. This is not just a passing trend.
No, it describes it as a full cultural tidal wave. Radio literally could not escape the conga.
Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca. Oh my gosh. You could not exist in 1999 without hearing that song. It was everywhere.
Everywhere. And let's look at why it worked mechanically. Livin' La Vida Loca operates at an incredibly fast 178 beats per minute.
Wow, 178.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, a typical pop song is usually around maybe 100 to 120 beats per minute. 178 is almost 3 beats every second.
That is basically a sprint.
It is. It's an explosive, flamboyant nightclub energy packed with sharp horn stabs and a rhythmic momentum that physically demands you to move.
Right, which makes sense because coming out of the sluggish, dragging tempos of the mid-90s grunge era, this hyper energy had to be a shock to the system.
A total shock. And then you contrast that blistering tempo with something like Santana and Rob Thomas's Smooth, which offered a completely different flavor of Latin pop.
Oh, Smooth was equally inescapable. It had this sultry, late summer night atmosphere.
Yeah, that guitar riff is iconic.
You literally couldn't walk through a grocery store without hearing that fluid, bluesy electric guitar solo. It was smoky, it had soulful vocals, and a very specific city light romance vibe.
Right. But while Latin pop had this massive commercial flash and undeniable crossover appeal, you also really have to look at the deep, gravitational shift of hip-hop happening at the exact same time.
Yeah, the source emphasizes this a lot.
Hip-hop in 1999 didn't just cross over. It fully became mainstream American gravity.
Meaning everything else had to orbit it.
Exactly. Regional rap scenes, the South, the East Coast, the West Coast, they suddenly exploded onto the national stage. And the production shifted dramatically.
How so?
Well, it evolved from raw, sample-heavy street music into something much sleeker, stranger, and incredibly cinematic.
We're talking Jay-Z, Eminem, Dr. Dre, Missy Elliott. I mean, look at the mechanics of Eminem's My Name Is.
Oh, yeah. Such a weird, brilliant track.
Right. It's built on these minimalist, funky beats, a quirky, almost cartoonish bass line, and it's mixed with this provocative, rapid-fire satire that was directly mocking the celebrity culture of the era.
And then you have Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg's Still DRE.
Oh, an absolute classic.
The production on that album was literal world building. Dr. Dre was using pristine studio musicians to replay samples, creating a rich, expansive sonic landscape.
It's not just looping old records anymore.
Exactly. It sounded just as expensive and polished as any boy band, but with an entirely different cultural weight.
Here is how I conceptualize this based on all these documents. Tell me if you agree.
Let's hear it.
Teen pop was a shooting star. It was undeniably brilliant, burning incredibly bright, but by its very nature, it was a manufactured moment destined to eventually fade out.
Right, it had an expiration date.
Yeah. But hip-hop, on the other hand, was like a planetary shift. It permanently altered the orbit of American music.
The gravity literally changed. But of course, every action in pop culture has an equal and opposite reaction, right?
Oh, definitely.
When you have an environment completely dominated by the shiny, polished pop of the chrome heavens and the cinematic sleekness of hip-hop, you inevitably create a vacuum for the exact opposite.
Kids looking for something a bit rougher.
Yeah. Teenagers who felt alienated by all that perfection went looking for dirt.
Which brings us to the shatters of the suburbs.
Ah, yes.
The teenage rebellion against that glossy sound materialized as nu metal. It was the sound of chain wallets, oversized jeans, and existential screaming.
The notes describe nu metal perfectly, by the way. They call it Mountain Dew Code Red before Code Red even existed.
Yes, I laughed out loud at that. Bands like Korn, Slipknot, and Limp Bizkit. The breakdown of Limp Bizkit's Nookie in our sources is actually really fascinating because it explains exactly why it resonated mechanically.
It wasn't just random noise.
No. It relied heavily on quiet, loud dynamics. You have these down-tuned, distorted guitars, meaning they physically loosen the guitar strings to make them sound deeper, muddier, and more menacing.
Right, it gives it that heavy growl.
Yeah. And they paired that with hip-hop-inspired drum grooves, but the quiet, loud dynamic is the key. The verses are quiet, tense, almost whispered, and then the chorus just explodes into a wall of screaming distortion.
Just massive energy.
And it's running at about 96 beats per minute, which is the perfect tempo for a heavy, marching, mosh pit aggression.
And, that quiet, loud, mechanical shift perfectly mirrors the emotional whiplash of being a volatile, frustrated teenager.
Yeah.
It literally mimics a mood swing.
Okay, but let me challenge you on this idea of it being a quote-unquote rebellion.
Sure.
Because teen pop was famously manufactured by executives in boardrooms, right? We all know that.
Yep.
But wasn't nu metal's particular brand of macho suburban rage and aggressive rap rock fusion just a different, darker kind of packaged commodity?
That's what you're saying.
Like, weren't they just selling toxic relationships and adolescent fury in a neat little CD jewel case so parents would become deeply concerned and kids would buy more albums?
It's a fair point, and yes, the record labels absolutely realized that Adolescent Fury was highly marketable.
Right.
The packaging was undeniably corporate, but I'd argue that the visceral release it provided to the listener was genuine.
The kids weren't faking it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kids weren't intellectualizing the marketing strategy in the mosh pit. They were reacting to the sterile pop environment. The angst was a real reaction to feeling invisible in a culture obsessed with pristine perfection. Nu metal just provided the release valve.
That makes a lot of sense.
And if you look at the broader spectrum of suburban angst in 1999, nu metal was only one flavor of it. You also had pop punk and ska punk, which was a very different kind of rebellion.
The fast, sarcastic, highly caffeinated suburban rebellion.
Yes. Blink-182, The Offspring, Real Big Fish.
The imagery the source uses here is brilliant. It notes that suddenly every single teen comedy soundtrack smelled faintly of pizza crust and Axe body spray.
That is so visceral. I can perfectly picture the exact bedroom that music was playing in.
Right. Posters on the wall, messy floor. It captures the era perfectly.
And musically, look at Blink-182's All the Small Things. It's an absolute masterclass in MTV-era punk production.
How so?
Well, it's running at 148 beats per minute, so it's fast and urgent. And they use a guitar technique called palm muting.
Palm muting, what's that?
The guitarists physically rest their hand across the bridge of the guitar to muffle the strings during the verses.
Oh, so it doesn't wing out fully.
Exactly. It creates this tight, chugging, highly caffeinated sound. Chug, chug, chug. Then right at the chorus, they lift their hand, the chords ring out brightly, and it explodes into massive gang vocals where everyone is singing together.
It's just undeniable energy, and it's dealing with themes of awkward young love, skate culture, late-night phone calls.
Very relatable stuff for a teenager.
Yeah. It was juvenile, sure, but emotionally sincere underneath all the toilet humor. And to completely round out that suburban experience, there was also alternative rock and post-grunge.
Oh, bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Creed.
Yes. I love how the documents refer to the specific sound as the soundtrack of driving nowhere at sunset in a beige sedan.
It's so painfully accurate.
It was cleaner than punk, more radio polished, and leaned heavily into earnest emotional drama.
So you have this incredibly vivid picture of the 1999 landscape, right? You've got the glittering highs of mall pop, the blistering 178 BPM heat of the Latin crossover,
The quiet, loud mosh pit aggression of new metal.
and the palm-muted, caffeinated rebellion of pop-punk. The synchronized jukebox was spinning all of this simultaneously.
But knowing what we know about the digital raccoon and how file sharing was about to completely shatter the monoculture, it raises the ultimate question of legacy. When the CD binders finally went to the landfill, what actually survived?
What stuck around?
Yeah. Which of these 1999 sounds permanently shaped the DNA of the music you and I listen to today? We actually have a ranking here based on the source's descriptions of future-facing impact.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because the genres that actually paved the way for the future weren't necessarily the ones making the loudest noise in the mall food court.
Right. So coming in at number 3 on the influence ranking, electronic, big beat, and club music.
Which absolutely laid the tracks for the next 2 decades.
The notes say that in 1999, quote, the future arrived wearing wraparound sunglasses and carrying glow sticks. You had Fatboy Slim, the Chemical Brothers, Darude.
And crucially, Eiffel 65's Blue Dabadi.
Oh, man, I'm blue, da-ba-dee-da-buddy.
That's the one. And look, it's easy to write that song off as a goofy Eurodance novelty, right? But look at the mechanics. It's a 128 beat per minute anthem driven by bouncy synthesizers. But the most important element is the robotic, processed vocals.
The way his voice sounds all glitchy.
Yes. They used software to forcefully correct the pitch of the human voice, giving it this surreal synthetic quality.
It created a world that was simultaneously melancholic and euphoric.
Exactly. And that exact technique, those trance-inspired synth leads and exaggerated auto-tune-style vocal processing, it normalized the sound of the mechanized human voice.
Which is everywhere now.
Everywhere. It was a direct, undeniable precursor to the heavy vocal processing that dominates modern pop music today. They proved that audiences would embrace a voice that sounded like a machine.
Which flows perfectly into our number 2 genre that completely architected the future, R&B and neo-soul.
Massive impact.
We are talking about Destiny's Child, TLC, Mariah Carey, Maxwell. The lasting legacy of this genre cannot be overstated.
The 1999 R&B sound was silky, it was emotionally intelligent, and it was incredibly futuristic. But the specific future-facing impact really come down to the production techniques.
Especially people like Timbaland working with artists like Aaliyah.
Yes. The documents describe his production as sounding like alien machinery learning romance.
That is such a striking phrase, alien machinery learning romance. How did he actually achieve that sound mechanically?
It was a fundamental shift in how rhythms were built. Instead of a human playing a standard drum kit, producers were using digital drum machines and samplers, like the Akai MPC.
Okay.
This allowed them to chop up sounds, a baby crying, a bird chirping, a weird synth blip, and turn them into percussive beats.
So they were using non-musical sounds as drums.
Exactly. They were creating these stuttering, syncopated rhythms with weird pockets of empty space that a human drummer physically couldn't play.
Wow.
And then you take those bizarre, futuristic, jerky beats and layer them with incredibly smooth, soulful, organic human vocals.
Alien machinery meeting romance.
Right. The friction between the cold digital machinery and the warm human romance laid the exact groundwork for the moody, alternative R&B that completely runs the charts today. It was light years ahead of its time.
Which brings us to the undisputed number 1 architect. We touched on it earlier with our planetary analogy, but hip-hop and rap didn't just survive the end of the monoculture, it consumed it.
Without a doubt. Because it became the absolute mainstream American gravity.
Yeah.
When the production became sleeker and more cinematic, it proved it could absorb literally any other genre. Hip-hop took its rhythmic innovations, its attitude, and its production techniques and made them the baseline requirement for all popular music going forward.
If you want a hit, you need hip-hop elements.
Exactly. When you become the gravity, everything else has to orbit around you.
So, as we pull all these threads together, what does this actually mean for us today? The 1999 monoculture was this bizarre, beautiful, and completely unsustainable collision.
A very brief window in time.
You had pristine boy bands sharing the exact same radio hour with caffeinated pop punk, planetary hip hop, and alien R&B. It was the absolute final moment in history where we all shared the same synchronized media experience.
Right before peer-to-peer networks got into the wires, unbundled the album, and fractured the audience into a million different personalized niches. And if you're listening to this right now, I think it asks you to really evaluate your current relationship with media.
Yeah, think about your own habits.
The transition from carrying around physical CD binders to having infinite streaming choices gave us access to everything, everywhere, all at once. But it absolutely cost us something.
It really did.
It erased the unifying, shared cultural touchstones that defined daily life. In 1999, you didn't just passively listen to a song on headphones while scrolling. You lived in the ecosystem of that song with millions of other people simultaneously.
You argued about it at school.
You waited for the music video to premiere on live television. You experienced it as a collective event.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. We've talked a lot about the teenage rebellion of 1999. The nu metal kids, the pop punk skaters, all reacting against the massive unified pop machine.
The establishment.
Right. But in our modern era, where the monoculture has completely shattered into infinite algorithmic fragments, what does that mean for the future of counterculture?
That's a great question.
If there is no longer a unified mainstream center that everyone is forced to listen to, can true rebellion even exist today? What are you supposed to rebel against when everyone is already in their own customized, isolated bubble?
It's hard to push back against a wall that isn't there.
Exactly. It's definitely something to think about the next time you hit shuffle and let an algorithm decide your reality.